Good evening, everybody. I guess we'll get started. It's 6:03. My name is Ingrid Allen. I'm the town planner here at the town of Highland Beach. I want to thank you all for attending. We are very much looking forward to your input. We've had two previous public input meetings. If you look at the slide that's on the screen here, the first one was December 5th, and the second one was December 7th. And at those meetings, I said the same thing I'm about to say right now, which is we welcome all input, whether it's positive or negative. If you are in agreement with an amendment concept, by all means tell us so. If you're not in agreement with an amendment concept and you would like to offer a tweak to it, by all means let us know. Again, this is a public input meeting, therefore we'd really like to get your input. We'll have at the end of the presentation a question and comments portion. And again, that will be the opportunity for you all to provide your comments. Oh, thank you. Looking for that. So I did want to very quickly acknowledge that we do have Commissioner David here, and we also have Planning Board Member DeVos in attendance. Now, while the Planning Board and the Town Commissioners were welcome to attend this public input meeting, actually all three of them, they do need to refrain from providing input, given that they will be taking a formal action on these amendment concepts in the future. There was a memorandum that was prepared by the town attorney which outlined all that information about refraining. That memorandum was emailed to both the commissioners and the planning board. Just in the name of transparency, I wanted to put that out there. Very quickly, I just want to acknowledge some of the staff members that are here. We have Teresa Cuevas, who's our assistant town manager. She will be helping me document your comments on this very nice easel pad over here. Also in attendance is Jeff Remus, who's our building official and floodplain administrator, and the mayor just walked in, Mayor Hillman. I don't know if you want to say a few words, Mayor, before I delve further. Okay. Just some quick housekeeping items. I believe all of you signed in, but if you haven't, we do have the sign-in sheets in the back, if you would kindly sign in before you leave. We also have a comment sheet in the back, front and back. All the amendment concepts are on this comment sheet. There's room for you to make comment. You could fill it out tonight, leave it here. You could take it home with you. You can add additional pages if you'd like. You can then scan it or take a picture of it, and you can email it to me. My email address is on the back. If you don't want to fill it out here, we actually have this comment sheet on the town website. It's a fillable form, so you could actually type in and you could provide your comment that way if you'd like. The meeting tonight and the other public input meetings are all being videotaped, so they'll be available on the town website as well. And the last thing I wanted to mention was a handout. This handout is provided in the back. I believe you all picked it up. This is the actual presentation that I'll be making, so you can follow along. We have some pens if you didn't pick one up. There's obviously room here for you to take notes. If you need me to clarify something on a particular slide, all the slides are numbered here. Circle it. You can ask me at the end of the presentation, can you elaborate on something, or can you clarify something? I'll be more than happy to do so. The amendment concepts can be a bit technical. I've tried to make the presentation as layperson friendly as possible. Some of you that are boaters, may be familiar with some of the terminology. Those of you that are not, maybe it may be a little bit foreign, but please hang in there, bear with me. Again, at the end of the presentation, I'll be glad to elaborate on anything, any concept, or clarify any of the amendment concepts that we're going to go over tonight. I think I covered everything. We'll go ahead and start the PowerPoint. If we could just dim the lights, it'd be great. Okay. Oh. Let's see if this is on. No, it's not working. Yeah, let's see. The red light works, but moving it to the next slide is not working. Yeah, worked at the other meetings. Oh, he's on the last one. Oh, no? That's weird. You think it's maybe a battery? Okay, oh, you'll do it? Oh, thanks. Yes, was wonderful, right? Okay, all right. Here we go. So I prepared a meeting outline. This way you can all see what will be covered this evening. So we're going to start out with the amendment concepts, the background, basically how we got here today, what triggered these 3 public input meetings, okay? Then we'll go into the definition of an accessory marine facility. Now, a lot of the concepts center around accessory marine facilities. So I think it's very important before we delve into these amendment concepts that you all are very clear as to what an accessory marine facility is. And luckily, the town code does provide a good description. So we'll get into that. Then we'll go ahead and delve into the amendment concepts. The first one, and let me just say, the amendment concepts are basically proposed changes to the regulations that we currently have in the code about accessory marine facilities, marine structures. Again, just proposed at this point. Let's see if this works. The pointer, yes, thank you. So the first amendment concept that's being proposed is to have a maximum height for accessory marine facilities, okay? The next one is to exempt, PWC stands for personal watercraft lifts. An example of a personal watercraft lift is like a jet ski lift. That's typically what we see coming into the town. So exempt them from the definition of boat lift, and I'll explain to you what the definition of boat lift is. The next one is a maximum seawall cap and dock width. So maximum width of a seawall and a maximum dock width. The next one is to have a 25-foot or 25% encroachment into the water of accessory marine facilities, whichever's less. The next is a 10-foot side setback for all zoning districts. Again, these are specific to accessory marine facilities. A ladder requirement, and also a maximum seawall height. Now, not only will we delve into each of these amendment concepts, we're going to also look at any corresponding town code regulations that currently exist that may pertain to one of these amendment concepts. There may be nothing currently in the code that pertains to these, but if there is, I'm going to let you know. And then we're also going to look at a no action option for all these amendment concepts. So if the town decides not to move forward with a particular amendment concept, what is the no action option? Is there something in the code right now that helps guide us, maybe not as detailed as these amendment concepts, but more general, that can help guide us in I guess, looking at these amendment concepts or working through them. And then we'll go ahead and have the question and comments. So you can go to the next slide. Okay, oh, it works now, thank you. All right, so here's the background. Again, this is how do we get to these meetings today. So back on November 17th of 2020, the Town Commission authorized the Vice Mayor at the time, Greg Bobby, to sponsor a review and propose amendments to the accessory marine facility regulations. Now, I looked at the meeting minutes for that November 17th meeting, and Mr. Bobby had indicated that both Boca Raton and Pompano Beach have clean ordinances in terms of their accessory marine facility regulations, and he also felt or suggested that some municipalities are moving towards a box type or 3D box type concept, and I'm going to delve into this box concept a little bit later. On March 15th of 2022, the Town Commission considered an introduction to the proposed amendment concepts. This was presented by Mr. Bobby. The consensus from the Commission at this meeting was to establish a process for review to include public participation. Now let me add, between November 17th of 2020 and March 15th of 2022, staff met with Mr. Bobby. We also brought in the town's marine expert, which is ATM. We have a professional services agreement with them for marine consulting. So we had met with them to discuss these amendment concepts, to analyze them, etc. On April 19th of 2022, the Town Commission established a process for review of amendment concepts to include the creation of maps of the various canal and lake widths. This was completed. And they also asked that the Planning Board physically observe the canal and lot widths and the existing accessory marine facilities. This was also completed. In May of this year, I actually accompanied each individual Planning Board member, those that didn't have access to a boat, on the town's marine patrol vessel. So we went out all the way along the intercoastal waterway to the town boundary with Delray Beach, worked our way south, went into all the canals, all the lakes. We looked at a variety of boat lifts. We looked at a variety of seawalls and docks. And then on June 21st and August 16th of 2022, the Town Commission considered a tentative planning board timeline to review the amendment concepts. And the consensus from the commission was to hold public input meetings prior to the planning board review in an effort to engage and solicit feedback from residents. So that's your history as to how we got here today. Okay, definition of accessory marine facility. So section 30-68G of the code describes what an accessory marine facility is. It's a dock, a pier, a launching facility, a boat basin, a freestanding piling, or lifting and mooring devices. Now, the way the code reads right now, seawalls are not considered accessory marine facilities. The regulations for seawalls are not in this chapter 30. They're governed by chapter 6, so they're not considered accessory marine facilities as the code reads right now. Okay, so this is our First Amendment concept. And the amendment concept is a maximum height for accessory marine facilities. This is the acronym you'll keep seeing, accessory marine facility. And the proposed height is, this stands for base flood elevation plus 7 feet. Now, I've put together a little diagram here to help explain base flood elevation for those of you that are not familiar with the term. This is a very simple diagram. So here you have the flood. This is represented by blue. The red dashed line is the base flood elevation. So we have different examples of homes here. So if your home is built below base flood elevation, you could see the risk for flooding is quite high. And let me just give you briefly a definition of base flood elevation. It's the anticipated height of floodwaters during a 100-year flood. It's basically a 1% chance of getting flooded each year, okay? Now, if we go to the home in the middle, this home is built at base flood elevation, so you could see less risk for flooding, right? And then if your home is built above base flood elevation, obviously your risk of flooding is much lower, okay? Now, what does the current code say about a maximum height for accessory marine facilities? It says nothing. There is no maximum height right now in the code. What the code does state is that for boat lifts, that the lifts cannot be higher than the superstructure of the boat when lifted. I've bolded that definition for you. It doesn't say how high the lift can be. It doesn't give a number, right? It doesn't quantify it. But the lift cannot be higher than the superstructure of the boat. Now, let me show you some examples of a boat lift to illustrate what this definition really means, and then I'll come back to the no action option. So here we have some examples of boat lifts. These have actually been submitted to the town of Highland Beach. So the one on the left, this is a 4-post boat lift. The top of the lift is at 7 feet 6 inches. This is the top point right here. The superstructure of the boat, when lifted, is at 9 feet 7 inches. So this boat lift is consistent with the definition of boat lift because the lift is not higher than the superstructure of the boat when lifted. You all see that, right? Makes sense. Okay. Now this particular boat lift, this is located on a very long perpendicular dock. The elevation of this boat lift is not at base flood elevation. Now, I forgot to mention one thing about base flood elevation. On the west side of A1A, the base flood elevation is currently 6 feet, NAVD, which is a North American vertical datum. And it's FEMA that establishes the base flood elevation. So this particular dock is actually, that measurement of 7 feet 6 inches, it's not from base flood elevation, it's from below base flood elevation at 4 feet. Don't want to confuse you, but yes. I prefer, if you'd like, but I prefer to wait, but yes, ask me. Well, the superstructure, you mean like a fishing pole? Oh. A fishing tower. I don't know if that would qualify under superstructure. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I don't know if that would be considered superstructure of the boat. When we have applications come in, if I had an application that came in with this fishing tower, I would look up the definition of superstructure and see if it qualifies. It's a great question. Yeah. Well, right. I'll tell you, I've been here 3 years. I've yet to see a boat lift with a fishing tower, but it, okay. Well, I'm sorry, the superstructure, yeah.
Your superstructure is the tower.
Okay, yeah. As I said, I haven't had one
So
come in,
from
but,
what you're showing, the superstructure would be a tower, yes.
yeah, okay,
I think you're all right.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Now, this is another example. This is actually an elevator lift. So this lift, the top of the lift right here is 6 feet. The superstructure of the boat is 6 feet 6 inches. Now, the way they did this boat lift detail, it's not in the lifted position. So when they lift it up, it'll be 12 inches higher, so it'll be 7 feet 6 inches. Now, this boat lift is for a new home. So this boat lift and dock is at base flood elevation. It's at 6 feet, okay? Now, I prepared here a table of the boat lifts that we've had come into the town as of January of 2020, just to give you some perspective, because the amendment concept is a proposed maximum height for boat lifts at base flood elevation +7. However, when you look at the boat lift heights that have come into the town, a third of them have actually been higher than 7 feet. So we want to get your input. Should we keep it at 7 feet? Should we go a little bit higher? You could see these 3 here. These were actually from base flood elevation. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that would be the superstructure, the top of it. Oh, okay. All right. Oh, okay, probably not then. Yeah, again, if I had one come in, I'd obviously do the analysis. So now that you show me the picture, okay. So getting back to the chart here. So we've had the ones that are circled in red are over the 7 feet that's being proposed. This one here came in at 7 feet 3 inches, but this home is not at base flood elevation. This home was built in 1986, so this home is, you know, the dock and the seawall are below base flood elevation. But again, we'd like to get your input. Are you content with this proposed maximum height if you feel we should even have one? Should it be at 7 feet as proposed? Or based on the applications coming in, maybe we should raise it to 7 feet 7 inches. If we keep it at 7 and we keep seeing boat lifts come in at 7 feet 7 inches, people will either have to redesign their boat lift, or they could go and they could submit for a variance, which is an exception to the rule. But with a variance, you have to show a hardship, and there's other criteria. Now let me go back to the no action option real quick. Oops. Okay, so this is a no action option. Again, if the town decides not to move forward with this particular concept, what is there currently in the code that can help guide us with this issue of maximum height? So I give a little text here where I say, if tomorrow, if an exceptionally high accessory marine facility was submitted, let's say a really high boat lift came in tomorrow, out of the norm, something out of the ordinary, the code allows us currently to bring in a marine expert. And we have these criteria in the code that every accessory marine facility has to comply with these criteria, which I've bolded. They cannot be a hazardous interference with navigation. They cannot endanger life or property. They cannot deny adjacent property owners or the public reasonable visual access to the public waterway. So again, if a high boat lift was submitted, we would bring in the marine expert and have them determine whether that exceptionally high lift is consistent with this criteria. And they would provide a report. All accessory marine facilities have to go to the planning board for approval. That report would accompany a staff report, and the planning board would then make their decision. Okay? Let's move on to the next amendment concept. So this is to exempt personal watercraft lifts from the definition of boat lift, or just remove the requirement from the code. So here's that definition of boat lift again. Again, I've bolded that part that talks about the lift can't be higher. Even though, as I said, a lot of the personal watercraft lifts that we see, they're specifically jet ski lifts, is what we've seen in the last 3 years. Even though they're a jet ski lift, they're still considered a boat lift, and they have to comply with this definition. However, a lot of the jet ski lifts have a very low profile. So we've seen several of the jet ski lifts that have come in, they're not able to meet this definition. And here's an example of one. This is one that has actually come into the town. This is the top of the lift, which is 6 feet, right here. And the superstructure of the personal watercraft, when it's lifted, is 3 feet 9 inches. So this boat lift is not consistent with the definition, right? Because the lift is higher than the superstructure of the boat. It's not supposed to be higher. So in this case, this property owner, not only do they have to go to the planning board to get an approval for the boat lift, but they went for a variance to the Board of Adjustment and Appeals. They showed a hardship, they had to comply with additional criteria, and the Board of Adjustment and Appeals did go ahead and approve it, but they had that extra hurdle, right? They had to pay an additional application fee, and they had to wait more time. So this is why we like to get your input. Should we just, again, exempt them from the lift, given the low profile, or not? The no action option, for any boat lift, whether it's a personal watercraft lift or your traditional boat lift, if you can't meet the definition, right now you have to redesign your lift or you go for a variance, which is an exception to the rule. And again, you have to show a hardship and there's other criteria. Okay, next amendment concept, we're halfway through, is a maximum seawall width of 3 feet and a maximum seawall plus dock width at 8 feet. This is proposed to be measured from the property line. Now, what does the current code say right now? The current code says that in waterways that are regulated, and this acronym stands for the United States Army Corps of Engineers. And let me add that all the waterways, the Intercoastal Waterway, the canals, and the lakes that are within the town of Highland Beach, Army Corps of Engineers regulates all of them. We actually met with Army Corps in March of 2020, and they confirmed that that is the case. So what the regulation currently says that if Army Corps approves it, you're good to go. That's good enough for Highland Beach. Okay? When you propose or want to install a boat lift, a seawall, you have to get approval from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection and the Army Corps of Engineers, just to give you a little bit of clarity there. Now, I provided here a list or a little table of the seawall widths and dock widths that we've seen come in. Again, to give you a little bit of perspective, these are as of January of 2020. So the seawall widths that have come in, you could see they're all at 3 feet in width. That's pretty common. Dock widths, we have some at 5, some at 4. We had one at 8. Okay. Now, the no action option here. Again, if the town decides not to move forward with a maximum seawall width or dock width, and let's say we had a really wide dock come in tomorrow, out of the norm, we would go ahead and have the marine expert come in, again, make sure that that dock is consistent, is consistent with the criteria. And again, as I said earlier, they would provide a report. Now, if we had an exceptionally wide seawall, these criteria don't apply to seawalls because these criteria are specific to accessory marine facilities, right? But that's not to say if we had a really wide seawall come in, the marine expert, if the marine expert felt that that wide seawall would endanger life or property or was a hazard interference with navigation, they would have every right to document that in the report. They're the marine expert. They would make that determination. Okay. Next amendment concept. This is that accessory marine facilities can encroach into the water 25 feet or 25% of the waterway. This is measured from the property line, whichever is less. And what the current code says is what it says for the previous amendment concept. So long as you have Army Corps approval, you can encroach as much as you like. Highland Beach has no further regulation. Okay? So if somebody comes in now with a boat lift, I make sure that they have the approval from Florida Department of Environmental Protection and Army Corps. If they have the approval, there's nothing else in the code for me to tell them. They have the approval. Now, before I'm going to show you some maps now, but let's just quickly look at the no action option. So if we don't move forward with this amendment concept, and let's say we had a boat lift and a dock come in tomorrow that's excessively encroaching into the water, marine expert, right? We bring in the marine expert, and they determine whether that boat lift is going to comply with these regulations. Okay, let's look at some maps now. Let's look at the reality on the ground. Okay, so we're going to look here at this encroachment, 25 feet versus 25%. We're now looking at the north side of Boca Highlands. Now, I've taken a very rough measurement. All the measurements I'm going to talk about, they're all rough measurements, so don't hold me to them. And I'm going to focus, I'll be talking about certain properties, highlighting certain properties. I also want to mention all the properties that I will reference. They're all randomly chosen, so I don't have a vendetta on anybody. They're randomly chosen. Okay, so the width here of this canal is approximately 77 feet. So 25% of 77 feet is 19.25 feet. So let's say if this amendment concept gets adopted, this property, if let's say they wanted to go ahead and put another boat lift, they could only encroach 19.25 feet because 25 feet, right, it's the less of the two. Now, the 25-foot measurement, I put it here just for your reference. It's right to the end of this green dot. That's 25 feet, okay? Now, a little side note, I put a circle, a dashed line around this boat just to give you, again, a little bit of perspective as we move forward. This is a boat that's currently moored at this property. It's not on a lift, it's just moored. Now, the code allows boats to be moored, and the only regulation that the code states is that you have to be within the property line, okay? So this boat can be as high as it wants to be. The only regulation is that they stay within the property line. Now, some people have no issue with looking at a big boat being moored. Some people have an issue when if a boat is lifted out of the water, then you gotta look at the propellers and the keel, and some people may not find that pleasing. Some people don't care. But I just want to give you that perspective that anyone can moor a boat right now, and there's really no regulation as far as height or anything like that. Okay, let's look at some more examples. This is a canal between Bel Air Drive and Russell Drive. Again, we're looking at the 25-foot versus 25%. This canal is approximately 148 feet in width. 25% of that is 37. So if we said this property wanted to come in, if the amendment concept is adopted, they want to put a lift, they could go 25 feet because 25 feet is the lesser of the two. That's the 25-foot mark right there. Okay? Next. Now we're at South Tranquility Drive. Here's the measurement that I've taken, approximately 91 feet right here at the canal. 25% of 91 is 23 feet. Let's say this property wanted to put in a boat lift, another one, and the amendment concept is adopted. They could encroach into the waterway only 23 feet. Now, I've provided you the 25-foot mark just for reference purposes, okay? Now, the amendment concept here, the 25 feet versus 25%, the way it's proposed, it says that it's measured from the property line, but that can be problematic, and here's an example. We have some property lines, some seawalls that are within the property line, right here. This seawall is within the property line. And then on this side, you can see that the seawall is outside the property line. So staff, we were suggesting maybe to make it from the property line or the seawall, whichever is further landward, or maybe the bulkhead and the seawall and the property line, whatever's further landward. Again, we'd like to get your input on that, okay? Bird Beach, this is in the northern part of the town along the Intercoastal Waterway. So obviously the Intercoastal Waterway is very wide, it's 300 feet. It does vary, but here you have a dock that's currently 30.7 feet into the waterway. Now, if the amendment concept is approved, let's say in 5 years, this dock is falling apart, they demolish it and want to put a new dock. If that amendment concept is approved, they'll have to reduce their encroachment by 5 feet, right? Because it's 25 feet or 25%, 25 feet is less, okay? Now, there was some discussion at the first public input meeting that maybe if you're on the Intercoastal Waterway, maybe this 25-foot versus 25% just doesn't apply. It should only apply if you're on a canal or lake. We'd like to get your input on that, okay? Now, here's a Coronado. They have some finger piers. They're currently about 36.3 feet into the water. Again, the amendment concept is proposing 25 feet or 25%. They're on the Intercoastal Waterway, so 25% would apply. If these finger piers, I know they just put some new ones in, but in 30 years, if they start falling apart again and the amendment concept is approved, the way it's written right now, this is just proposed language, they could only go 25 feet. But interestingly enough, a lot of the condominiums have their property lines in the water. So again, we want to get your input. Are you okay with, if these have to be installed in 30 years again, are you okay having them go 36.3 feet again, so long as they're within their property line? Or do we have them comply with this 25 feet if the amendment language moves forward? So I'd like to get your input on that. And here's another interesting example. There's a lot of nuance here in the town, so I'm trying to show you the nuance here. These are two very long perpendicular docks, okay? Now, these docks, again, if the amendment concept is approved, they're encroaching more than 25 feet in the water. again, their property line is in the water. Do we want to exempt them from, if the amendment concept does get approved, do we want to exempt perpendicular docks that are along the intercoastal waterway? Do we want to exempt everyone on the intercoastal waterway from this 25 feet? The code does allow perpendicular, you can have a perpendicular dock. So we, again, like to get your input on that. Now, I put together a table here. These are the approved boat lists as of January 2020. This outlined column in red, this shows you the maximum encroachment. This includes not only the boat lift and the dock, but the seawall. And you can see only one of them within the last 3 years encroached more than 25 feet. We had one that was at 26. So just to give you an example, if the amendment concept gets approved at 25 feet, and let's say in 30 years they want to replace their seawall, or let's say it's falling apart, they want to demolish their existing dock and boat lift and replace it, they would have to encroach 1 foot less into the water, right? Okay. All right, our next amendment concept. You're all with me, following? Very good, okay. This is a 10-foot side setback for all zoning districts. Now, for lots that are less than 100 feet in width, the setback is 10% of the width. However, the setback cannot be less than 5 feet. I'm going to show you some examples. Let's look at what the current code says right now. The current code says that if you're in a single-family zoning district, you have to have a 25-foot side setback. If your lot width is 50 feet or more, but less than 70 feet, your side setback is 15 feet. If your lot is less than 50 feet, then you could get a special exception from the planning board. I won't delve into that, but the language is right here. And if you're in a multi-family zoning district, there's no side setback for you right now. You could put your dock right up to the property line. The code does say that boat basins do have a 25-foot side setback, okay? Now, I'm going to show you some examples. Let's quickly look at the no action option. Right now, if you can't meet the setback, if you're in a single family, you can't meet the 25-foot setback, you either have to move your boat lift or move your dock to make it compliant, or you can request a variance, but you have to provide a hardship, and you have to comply with other criteria, okay? All right, let's look at some setbacks. This is a residential single-family zoning district. We're going to look at this home right here in the X, marked with an X. This is 2352 South Ocean Boulevard. Okay, so here we're looking eastward. This is their dock, okay? Now here's your north arrow. We're looking at the same dock. We're just looking right above it. We're looking from above. Now, right now, their current side setback from the dock is approximately 21 feet. So it looks like they may be legal nonconforming because they're supposed to have 25 feet, okay? Don't hold me to it, but it looks like they may be legal nonconforming on the north. On the south, they have 28 feet, so that's conforming. Now, if the amendment concept gets approved, their lot width is 80 feet. The amendment concept says it's 10 feet or 10% of your lot width. So 10% of 80 feet is 8 feet. So the blue line represents the 8 feet right here, okay? This is the 8 feet. So if the amendment concept gets approved, they could expand the dock to that blue line on the south and expand it to the north to that blue line right there, okay? Let me show you some more examples. This is also a single-family zoning district. This is Bellito. Right now, again, you have to have 25 feet side setback. We're going to look at this property right here on the X. So this is on the canal. This is 4426 Tranquility. We're looking northward. Here's their dock. We're still looking northward. Here's your north arrow. The lot width is 100 feet. So based on this amendment concept, they have to provide a 10-foot side setback. Right now, looks like they have approximately 23 feet. They're supposed to have 25. On the west side, on the east side, they have about, does that say 25? I'm sorry, it's a little bit of glare. Yeah. Now, they would have to provide, if the amendment concept gets approved, 10 feet. So here's the 10 feet right here in blue. So if the amendment concept gets approved, they could extend their dock to that blue line on the east side and extend it this way to the west. You can add a boat lift right here. Right now, they can't add a boat lift here. Right now, they cannot. Okay? Now, let's look at some multifamily zoning districts. If you recall, multifamily zoning districts, you don't have to have any side setback. But the amendment concept says you do. So let's look at that. This is the canal between Russell Drive and Bel Air. We're going to look at this property right here. This is 1019 Russell Drive. This is looking southward. This is their dock. So right now they have 18 feet On the west side, here's your north arrow, give you perspective. On the east side, they have 5 feet. Now, the lot width is 100. So if the amendment concept gets approved, they're going to have to provide 10 feet on each side. On this east side, they currently have 5. So if this dock starts to fall apart, and again, the amendment concept gets approved, they're going to install a new dock. It will have to be 5 feet shorter, right? They have to provide 10 feet. They only have 5. They have 5 feet right now, so their dock would shrink. It would not be as long as it is right now, if the amendment concept is approved. Okay, we're going to look at another multifamily. Now we're at Highland Beach Drive. We're going to look at this property with the X, and here's the canal just to give you again perspective. This is looking northward. This is their dock. This is, again, we're looking north, north arrow, looking above. The lot width is 100 feet. They currently have 5 feet on the west and 7 feet on the east approximately. Given it's 100 feet, the amendment concept says they would have to provide 10 feet. Well, guess what? If that dock falls apart and the amendment concept is approved and they want to go ahead and install a new dock, they're going to lose about 5 feet on this side and about 3 feet on this side. Now, I have a few slides here that shows the 25-foot encroachment and the side setback together. Okay, so we're looking at the Bird Beach area. This is along the intercoastal here. This is that northern part of the town. This is a single-family zoning district. The lot width is 100 feet. So the amendment concept says you'd have to provide a 10-foot setback. Right now, it's 25 feet, 10 foot on the north, 10 foot on the south, and then a 25-foot encroachment, right? Because they're on the intercoastal, 25 feet will be the encroachment. Here's that box that I was talking about. This is the box. So within that box is where you can put your dock, your boat lifts. Okay? Let's look at another example. This is Bellito Isle. This is the intercoastal here, a single-family zoning district. The lot width is 100 feet. Based on the amendment concepts, you'd have to do a 10-foot side setback to the north and to the south. And because it's on the intercoastal, the encroachment would be 25 feet, which is marked right here. And then the red dashed line is that box. And within that box, you could put your lift here, your dock, or what have you, another lift on this side. Again, right now, you'd have to be 25 feet on each side. And then let's look at a multifamily zoning district. Remember, multifamily right now, you don't have to have any side setback. But with the proposed amendment concept, you will. This property has a lot width of 45 feet. So the amendment concept says either 10 feet or 10%. So 10% is 4.5. However, the amendment concept says you have to have a minimum of 5 feet. So I provided the 5-foot setback here on the south. Here's your north arrow. And then 5 feet on the north. The width of this canal is approximately 75 feet. 25% of 75 feet is 18.75 feet that you could encroach. So here's the 18.57 feet. And the red dashed line represents that box. And this is where you could put your boat lift. There's one already here. You could put maybe another one here. Okay? Yes. Yes. Well, this one doesn't have the property line in the waterway. No. Oh. No. Okay.
It's going to go through the box.
That's true. Yeah.
And I think one thing what I'm seeing is you have to take into account the extended property lines.
I agree with you, but just for conceptual purposes, right? Right, and I again, there's so much nuance in the town, but I get what you're saying. But again, yeah, no worries. I totally agree with you, but keep the concept, right? Right, got it. No, I appreciate the comment. Sure. Yeah. Well, no, I mean, it's within the, it looks like it's within the property line.
Well, if it extended another foot, would that mean it can't be there?
Pardon? When I say, yeah, I mean, you know, the code doesn't give that much detail. It just says within the property line. Right. Right, so if we have, things have to be taken on a case-by-case basis. We have properties with all kinds of interesting measurements, right? So yeah, we'd have to look, extend the property line, see what's going on. But again, I'm just showing you this for conceptual, but you're right. There's, as I said, a lot of nuance that we look at every day. Yeah. Okay, we have 2 more amendment concepts to go. The next one was to require a ladder for every 50 feet of dock. What does the current code say about ladders? It says nothing, okay? So instead of a no action option, what I've done here is just, again, give you perspective. What are other municipalities? What do their codes say about ladders? So let's look at that quickly. Boca Raton, if you have a dock, you need a minimum 1 ladder. If your dock is greater than 50 feet, you need 2 ladders. Manalapan and Gulfstream, which are somewhat comparable to the town of Highland Beach, ladders are permitted on docks, they don't give you a minimum, okay? Delray Beach, if you have a dock, you need a minimum 1 ladder. If you have finger piers and docking facilities for 2 or more boats, you need a minimum 1 ladder. If you have 2 finger piers or more on the same property, you need a minimum 1 ladder for each finger pier. And Lighthouse Point, again, ladders are required for all docks, but they don't give a number. So we'd like to get your input on your thoughts on ladders. When we went out onto the intercoastal and the canals and lakes with the planning board, you do see ladders, around on the intercoastal. You see them on the canals. Some have more than others, certain areas of the canal. But again, we'd like to get your take on that. Last amendment concept is a maximum seawall height, okay? What does the code say right now? The code says that all seawalls west of A1A, you have to be at base flood elevation or higher. So base flood elevation is 6 feet, right? NAVD, North American Vertical Datum, as provided by the FEMA firm maps. As I mentioned earlier, base flood elevation is determined by FEMA. So what is the no action option? So if we had an exceptionally high seawall that was proposed, let's say tomorrow, we would bring in that marine expert, which the code allows us to bring. Now, I try to get you a visual on seawalls. Those of you that are boaters, if you have the opportunity to go out, I recommend you look at the seawalls. This picture doesn't really do it justice, but you could see it here on the right. These pilings, you could see them very clearly, where on the left, the seawall's shorter. Again, the picture doesn't do it much justice, but you do see these varying seawall heights as you go through the canals and even on the intercoastal. Looking at some other municipalities, Delray Beach, they have a maximum seawall height. It's base flood elevation. Now, if your base flood elevation is 4 feet, then your seawall has to be 5 feet, so 1 foot above. North Palm Beach, their base maximum seawall height is 6 feet. It does vary by flood zone. Ocean Ridge, Boca Raton, Manalapan, I couldn't find anything in their code about a maximum seawall height, so there's nothing there. All right, questions and comments. Here's my contact information. Let me go ahead and put up, these are the amendment concepts, and we can go through those. So I could take general comments. We could start with that if you'd like, and we have a microphone as well for your questions and comments. And we'll be documenting them on the pad there. Oh, yes.
I have a lot of questions, but let me just start with this one issue. Which has to do with, let's call it non-permanent items like plastic or rubber, floating docks and lifts. And how does that fit in? Currently, as I understand it, there are no rules regarding any of those things. Some of them are attached right up against property lines. Some of them are attached right up against property lines holding boats that stick out 15 feet or so into the waterway. And to be blunt about it, without taking those items into consideration, and I haven't heard a word about it tonight or in the previous meetings, a lot of this becomes meaningless in terms of how space is managed. Now, years and years ago, these weren't a big deal. But as technology has improved, we're seeing boats now that are 30, 35 feet long or more that are on floating lifts or floating docks, anyway, let's put it that way. And they're just attached to the seawall right up against the property lines. How does any of what we're discussing about tonight impact any of that? Is it impacted if you build one of those red boxes with nothing outside it? Or is it totally unaffected by what we're talking about?
The town code right now doesn't say too much about floating docks. It says that it has to comply, with setback regulations, if there is a setback. The reason why you don't see a reference to floating docks is because it wasn't identified as an amendment concept, but I'm glad you made the comment, and we're going to document that. Obviously, you feel that maybe there should be a little bit more text in the code about them.
Well, I feel that there are multiple issues about this. Among other things, I have been told by town officials in the past something different than what you just said, which is, what you just said is that these things have to be compliant with other codes like setbacks. I'm telling you now that these things are clearly not, in multiple instances, compatible with current setbacks at all. So, and in fact, I've been told by town officials in the past, when I brought this to their attention, that no, we're sorry, but the town does not have the ability to regulate these quote-unquote floating impermanent structures that are attached to the seawall, as you know, by by some PVC pipes that are put into the water next to the seawall. And these structures, which are, as technology improves, are becoming increasingly large, are then, attached to the seawall, in effect. And I've been told that we do not have the power to regulate that.
I'll read you directly from the code. Section 30-68H. Floating docks are permitted subject to conformance with all zoning code requirements herein and compliance with all applicable building codes. Now, let me add that we do have, what is the actual wording, Jeff? Floating, the exemption that we have from the state? I can't remember the wording of that application. Is it floating dock? Do you remember the wording?
Yeah, these are for...
Oh, let me get you the mic. This is our building official. We have an exemption form for certain floating type structures. And
Yes, we have, the state has stripped a lot of the requirements from the town for floating vessel platforms.
That's the term.
So if it's designed specifically to lift a vessel out of the water, we can require that they fill out a form stating that they're going to comply with all the regulations, but the state has stripped us from the right to regulate a lot of it. And that's something that we can't control. That has come from the state. But these are specifically for floating vessel platforms, and this is something that's designed to lift a vessel completely out of the water. If it doesn't lift the vessel completely out of the water, we can regulate it more. But if it does, a lot of the rules and regulations don't apply because the state in fact, they don't even like us forcing them to fill out an exemption form, but we make them fill out an exemption form telling us that they're compliant. Now, if they're going to hook up electric to it, they're going to pull a permit for the electrical component, but the balance of it, it's very difficult for us to regulate because the state has stripped us out. I guess that industry has lobbied to the state, and they won. So that prohibits us. But if it's not a floating vessel platform, it's just a floating dock, well, then it's regulated. We regulate it. What's existing now that was put in without permits, what was, or maybe with permits back when things were different, we may have legal or illegal. We can either have legal non-conforming or just non-conforming. We can address those as people want to make changes. But until then, with some of the stuff, such as the floating vessel platforms, we're very limited on what we can do.
I won't beat this up anymore after this, but just to be clear, if I decide that I want to put a floating platform on my property line for my, 16-foot standard size two-man canoe or kayak, then that's fine. Is that correct?
What do you have to fill out? That's a floating vessel platform. So you'd have to fill out the exemption. application that we have on the town building, on the building page.
Right,
building
but the
department's
state
page.
says it's okay. I have to fill out a
Right.
form and that's it. The town can't do anything about it.
Right,
So I now have something that's right on my property line, that's sticking 16 feet out into the water, independent of the old 25-foot setbacks or the newly proposed 10-foot setbacks.
right. These are for structures, floating vessel platform.
Right,
It's a
but as the
different issue.
technology changes, these things are going to become less structured and more what we're talking about.
That's good insight. Thank you for the comment. Any other comments? Oh, wait, we'll give you the microphone.
I have a problem, but the way we were addressing that 4 or 5 years ago with the commission, and this is a sketch from about 4 years ago, when we had a 5-foot setback on multi-dwelling houses, okay? Now, that was terrible then, but 10-foot won't do it. Just picture two multiple houses next to each other. They're both parked behind each other on dock 2 or 3. And then this would allow a owner put a dolphin now 25 foot out, 10 feet from the borderline, and the other dolphin across would make the boat lift is a rail. So if the other property owner puts a like 10 foot 2, you end up with a 20-foot opening, 25 feet away, and there is no way that both 28-foot, 30-foot boat can enter there. So I personally feel that 10 foot is fine for davits, 10 foot is fine for rail docks, rail lift, but this is not good for piling type of this. There should have at least another type, minimum 10 feet for entering.
You're talking for like boat lift pilings?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So boat lift piling should really have a different setback than boat lifts, rails, and davits.
That's a good comment.
I have a sketch over here. I don't know if that will help a little.
Oh, yeah, I'll take the,
It
ahead.
needs to be for hybrid,
okay, thank you. Did you want to ask a question? You want to pass the mic? No? Are you, did you have
No,
another
I'm done.
comment? Okay.
So, yeah. So, are they going to remain special exceptions, all boat lifts, or are you going to allow them by right?
The way it's proposed, it's, you have to get a special exception approval by the planning board. That's what's being proposed. We're not having, if you fit in the box, administratively approved by staff. The way the amendment concepts were proposed is that they still have to go to the planning board for approval.
If the
But
planning
if you
board
feel
wants to-
different, let us know.
Well, if you have good standard regulations
Mm-hmm.
from the extended property line, I don't know why you should have to go to the planning and zoning board to
Okay.
do that.
That's a great comment.
So if you have your setbacks, I'm surprised that, because in the current code, we talked about that, going back to that slide where I interrupted you, and I apologize for that, Ingrid, or Miss Allen. The extended property line is in the code for when you moor a boat, when you dock a boat. You can't be within 5 feet from the extended property line. That's in your current code today.
Wait, what, I'm sorry, repeat that? Can you tell me where you see that in the code?
Oh, right here. On item 4, boats and setbacks, when moored, any portion of a boat shall not extend beyond any property line as extended waterward.
Okay.
So there's 0 setback,
Right, correct.
right? But even a moored boat
Right.
should have a setback. The only problem with that is, since you've had a code for so long, you'll render a lot of people non-conforming, and
Yeah.
I don't like to see that happen.
Okay.
So-
So you don't want to see a
Well, I would like
setback
to
for
s-
moored
I
boats?
would like to see a setback for moored boats.
Okay.
I would like to see, you mentioned Pompano Beach. Well, I wrote a good portion of that code.
Okay.
So the 5-foot was always there.
Oh, for moored boats in Pompano?
in-
Really?
In Pompano, yes. Code
And how
enforcement.
are they with implementing that?
Well,
Given the currents and
given the number of
tides
ca-
come in?
Well,
and-
no, boats move back and
Yeah.
forth, but you average it. You got to
Okay.
have a little bit of discretion. But but the drawings that came in, and well, they've now since removed any zoning review for. It all goes through engineering now. It doesn't go through zoning. But I must have done 1,000 docks and boat lifts down there. they have so many more canals. In the 10 years we did it before we moved it over there. But regardless, um, the docks also have a 5-foot, but unfortunately, a boat has to extend beyond the dock. So that presents a problem in owners bickering. But anyway, the other thing I wanted to get down to, I did take some notes. The side setback should be from the extended property line. I talked about that. You had, can you hold on? Thank you.
And let me just say the setback that we have, right, it's from the structure, right, from the structure. So if you have a boat lift, it's from 25 feet if you're a single family, from the
But-
structure to the property line.
Correct.
Right,
But the boat can extend off that structure.
correct.
You know, depending on the weight of the boat and how it's balanced, that can extend 5 feet or 10 feet. The bow can be, you know, you got a good center console, 38-footer, the boat lift's only going to be 1/3 the boat. You're going to extend
That's true.
20 feet the other direction and
Yeah.
5 feet in
Yeah.
the back.
Although, just for what it's worth, I've been here 3 years, I haven't anybody complain about that, but just, yeah, I haven't gotten any calls,
well,
yeah.
it depends on where your setback is.
Yeah.
So if you set the structure back, once you implement the 10 feet, you can have a guy come in and his boat's going to extend past that extended property line farther. You know, so the rules got to apply to the structure and the boat. I'm surprised we're issuing so many variances on the waterway when they're inside the going back to, hold on. The one where you had the.
I'll go back to. If you give me the slide number, I'll go
I was
back.
Going back to slide 14. That's where it's wholly within the property line.
Yep.
And
Oh,
that's their
sorry.
entire boat basin. I don't know why you'd be regulating inside their property lines.
Yeah. Again, we just want to get your input
Yeah.
on that.
I mean, that's.
Right now,
So
we,
their perpendicular docks are not extending into a waterway, they're extending into their submerged land. Their riparian rights are kind of right
right.
there.
As I said, right now, I process these new finger piers. They got their Army Corps approval and their Florida Department of Environmental Protection. That's good enough
But
per
a
town
finger
code.
pier on a different canal and issuing variances where it's all public right-of-way.
Right.
I don't know why we're
Yeah.
even mentioning
Yeah.
doing variances on public right-of-way, because you don't own the property. You can't issue a variance on property you don't own. That's a pretty, forward concept.
Which is actually then, you're almost saying to keep things the way they are,
No,
right?
no, I'm not
Okay.
saying that. I'm
Okay.
not saying that at all. I'm saying the thought of getting a variance outside my property is.
Okay. It's a good
is-
point, yep.
I don't know why people think they should be allowed to, should get that, because
Yeah.
I don't think it's actually
I think for
legal.
the encroachment, the no action option was to bring in the marine expert, right, to make a determination.
Well,
When
now-
it comes to like the height of the lift, then, that would be a variance, right?
Right. Now, the marine expert, are they structural engineers? What's the criteria for that?
Yes. Actually, we did have our marine expert here on the first public input meeting. We work, as I said, with ATM. We have a professional services agreement with him, or with ATM. Dr. Michael Jenkins, so he's a PhD in, I believe, coastal engineering.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
These are reputable firms, a reputable firm that we deal with.
Then you get into, I've seen that when you codify things and you require and rely on experts, that just gets one expert in a piss and match with another expert.
That happens, you're
depending-
right. That's
gets-
just how
gets-
things are,
and,
though,
yeah,
right?
it's
You
still-
get an expert, and you have another
Right,
expert, and
right.
then
For
it's the battle of the
relief or
experts.
Special exceptions, I could understand it, but for getting a straight permit, on something that should be relatively easy, if I want a boat lift that doesn't have the pilings, and it's just within my extended property lines, I think it should be able to go to permit, the code should be clear, and it should be able to be reviewed and approved, one that leans up against the dock, and the height limit you have,
We don't have a height limit right now.
I know you don't.
Okay,
The one you're proposing.
okay,
We're only talking really about what you're proposing,
Right.
not necessarily about what's,
okay.
because something's going to change. So the height, I don't see a problem with that, but you just give an extra foot and call it a day and don't render anybody non-conforming. I think you'll be fine. And you were talking about it, but you weren't giving demonstration of when the BFE, you're saying BFE, so it doesn't matter where the seawall is. I can go to, you said 7 feet, I believe, right?
That was the proposed
Right,
threshold,
So the proposed is
yes.
7 feet, so my seawall's at 4,
Mm-hmm.
that can extend up, or 4 or 5, I guess, that would be a low seawall.
Yeah.
About 4 or 5. So I could come up 10,
No.
10
We,
feet
actually, I
above.
talked about that with the building official. We were, playing out scenarios. So, right, if you have a base flood elevation, if this amendment concept gets approved, we'd have to tweak the language. But if your base flood elevation is at 4, it would be 7 feet, 6 inches if
No,
we go
ba-
with that.
BFE is BFE.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. We'd have to take into account those seawalls that are lower than base flood elevation. You have to make an accommodation. Doesn't mean that they get to go up to base flood elevation plus an additional 7 feet. We'd have to make an accommodation. Again, that amendment concept, the language that you saw today, would have to be tweaked to accommodate those that are lower than base flood elevation. I mean, we could maybe do it internally with staff, but I think the text would need to be tweaked, the proposed text.
So then you are treating each property is going to be treated differently and penalized differently, because the rules aren't going to be same for each property.
Well, I think we'd have to massage that a bit more. I think we do need to make an accommodation if you're not at base flood elevation. We have many properties where their seawalls are at 3 feet right now, right? So if they want to go ahead and put a lift, and this amendment concept gets approved at base flood elevation plus 7, I mean, we'll let them do the 7 feet,
Well-
but from their current elevation, not from, right?
Well, let's put it into practical,
Okay.
a practical reality. Forgetting where my seawall is, or anybody's seawall is, the water's coming up a certain height. If I don't get a lift that lifts my boat out of the water, and it needs to be at 7 feet or 8 feet above BFE, because that's the flood elevation, you're penalizing me. My boat's going to float on the lift and get beat up. I mean, you got to be standard through all that.
Okay.
You can't penalize me for having a low seawall.
The code requires all seawalls to be at base flood elevation or higher, yeah.
Right. I understand that.
We're not mandating it, right? But, right, if you have a code, if you have a seawall now at 3 feet, you're legal non-conforming, but the minute you want to install a new seawall, right, you have to bring it up to base flood
Sure.
elevation.
But what if you want to lift without installing a new seawall?
So then you put the lift. Right now, you can
Right,
put the
well-
lift,
I understand.
yeah.
But how high can that lift go?
Right now, the code says nothing.
We're talking about the
Right,
amendment.
now, if you do
We're
the
talking
set,
about
that's
the
what I'm
concept.
saying. You would go 7 feet. I mean, this is how we're thinking about it.
Well, no,
The-
I'm
the
agreeing with what
amendment
you're
concept,
saying.
yes, the amendment
I mean,
concept is
I'm-
very broad, right?
Right.
It's very
Okay,
broad.
well, broad is, now you're saying it's broad, where before you were saying it was 7 feet. So
Well, it is 7 feet, but I'm saying if you have a seawall that's not at base flood elevation, I think we have to consider that if this amendment concept gets moved forward, right?
I'm saying you don't.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
saying make your
Okay.
jobs,
Well,
make your
we'll-
jobs
we'll
simpler.
document that.
Make your job simpler. Make
Okay.
everybody's job simpler. The
Okay.
person submitting for the boat lift is going to show the base flood elevation, BFE, and they're going to
Okay.
show the height of their boat lift, and they won't
Okay.
exceed it, because boat lifts are the same on the use of the boat lift is the same
Correct.
at a low seawall and a high seawall.
Correct.
I got to get my boat out of the water, and I got to get my boat out of the water high tide. Water,
Yeah.
well, you're doing BFE, so stick
Yeah.
with BFE and stick with it. Yeah, so,
Okay.
I thought that was a good
Yes.
concept, but don't render people non-conforming as, anybody that's out there. Give yourself the tolerance where it wouldn't render anybody non-conforming today, and you got flexibility in the boat lifts. So it works all the way around, and it helps you guys out.
Jeff, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to clarify a point. Again, these are just concepts that we are looking for public input on. And the powers that be, the commission is going to put this through different committees and get voted on eventually. The thought process is we need to protect a barrier island because the waters are getting higher. So we're not penalizing someone who doesn't have a seawall at base flood elevation. The word we like is we're incentivizing them to raise their seawall for the good of everyone else, for the good of the community. So we want to incentivize them. If you want to have your lift higher, raise your seawall. We're incentivizing, we're not penalizing. So it depends on whether your glass is half empty or half full, but we're looking our concept, which is not code, it has to be debated. Our concept is for the good of the community. We're going to incentivize you. If you want something higher for your boat because you want a bigger boat, raise your seawall. That was the idea with that.
Well, bear in mind, and I'll go back to what the gentleman said, the reason why you have the floating dock is it's too hard to get a lift. You make a special exception and things like that, so people are buying those rubber floaties and pulling their boats on because they'd rather do that than get the special exception and go and meet all your criteria. I mean, that's why you've seen so many of those pop up. I mean, there's reasons why this stuff happens. You know, I was doing this, I was in your job for 30 years.
And one of the issues with that, one of the issues is that in the town of Highland Beach, people have always been notified when their neighbors are doing something. It's very difficult to take that away. Okay, people want to have public input. So it's nice to say, here's the box, we can build in it, and that is what most other places do, but that's not what has historically been done here. So, you know, we're slowly building so that we can make things a little bit easier in many instances, but it's very difficult for us to take away your right for public input and just issue a permit for your neighbor to build a boat lift because it fits in this box. So, you know, it's a slow process. We're not going to change it overnight, but
People support it and the commission passes it, it's not.
then it's not, and it's just getting to that point.
Build you a proposal and the thing goes easy and you get the best of both worlds.
Just to add what Jeff was saying, right. The code requires, when you go before the planning board for a special exception, which is how you get approval for an accessory marine facility, that everyone within 500 feet of that property that's requesting the special exception to put in a boat lift or a dock, you know, that they get a notice of the public hearing. So I think that's what when staff met with Mr. Bobby back in 2020 through 2022, we talked about that, and that's exactly what staff had brought up. Once you take that away, then the residents are like, wow, now I can't comment. Not that people always come to the meeting to comment, but yeah.
But I'm buying, and it's no longer chump change in Highland Beach anymore.
Yeah.
I'm buying a couple $1 million piece of property. I would like to know what the rules are and what I can do before I buy the property. I don't want to depend on going to some meeting and have some neighbor who's unrealistic object and then get turned down and have to appeal that to go because I was right in the first place. You know, because that happens.
Right.
So, you know, I'd like to work towards getting good rules that are being enforced.
You know, the special exception was written. Special exception was written 50 years ago. I was here just at that time. And really, it served no purpose. Special exception should be really when violates all the code and you're trying to make something different, okay? But I think the court should say, this you can do, and this you cannot do, period. Special
Okay.
exception goes, throw that away.
So no special exception requirements.
Well,
Okay. Can you, I'm sorry, would you mind passing the mic? Thank you.
I go back. The measurements you have, one thing, another possibility you could do is measure from center lines of canals.
Center line of canal?
I'm sure
Okay.
that's probably come up or you've seen it somewhere before.
I've
but
seen the reference.
Yeah, where you have, and a lot of places they simplify it, where well, you have the 25%, but you could go where nothing goes within, so you keep the channel clear. You know, you can get up to 1/3, but no more than or no more than X from the center line of the canal.
Okay.
And that, you know, that really takes effect when you don't have that many small canals here, though. You know, I don't think you have any 50s or
I don't think so.
No. yeah.
Oh, we get to pass the mic. Thank you. I was going to say, if you could put your comments in writing, maybe you want to do that fillable form tomorrow. We'd really like to get all your detail, not lose anything. Yeah. Yes, go right ahead.
Couple of issues. First being, a lot of this has to do with what happens when the dock gets destroyed and has to be rebuilt. people have bought these homes, these multi-million-dollar homes, with the intent of having their boat there also. It would seem to me that if something had to be rebuilt, as long as it had been permitted initially, and as long as it's not a safety issue, grandfather it. Makes it easy. Seems to me that that's the fairest way of going about it.
Whenever you decide to install a new structure, you have to comply with the current code. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I got it.
You
but-
got it, but I
but-
do appreciate the comment. It's a
Yeah,
valid
okay.
comment. Yeah, you want to be able to do what you had previously. You want the
Exactly.
same dock width. You don't want to now provide a 10-foot side setback if you were multifamily, didn't have a side setback before.
Assuming that it was permitted.
Correct.
And assuming that it's not a safety issue.
Okay, it's a valid point.
The other thing that I consistently mention is reducing the speeds that these boats go through. And I know that it's not a Highland Beach issue, it's a Florida wildlife and the Army Corps of Engineers. But I'd like to know how many more people have to die before they slow the traffic down.
You know, the town does have a marine patrol vessel now with us, a
Who's
police.
out there 2 times a week, sometimes.
Yeah. I appreciate the comment. I'll let the chief know the comment was made. Again, it's not particularly an amendment concept, but we appreciate the note. I'll let the chief know that you did make the comment.
Yeah, we live at the Coronado, and our balcony faces west, and I paint out on my balcony all weekend and all week, and I see the boats racing. And as my husband said, the Marine Patrol is there maybe twice a week, maybe. I didn't see them this weekend because they usually hang across from us where there's floating docks. I don't know, across from us is Del Rey or
Boca Raton, I believe.
they have the big floaters that extend not from their property line, but from their docks. So it's really far out. But usually, there used to be, right after the deaths, every day over the weekend, there were Marine Patrol. Now we hardly see them. And we have seen some almost accidents. And we're waiting. We're waiting. We've seen some stuff that we're like.
Again, I appreciate the comment. I will let the chief know, Chief Hartman, that the comment was brought up. So I do appreciate
I
that.
have another question. You mentioned Pompano Beach, and you said, oh, really, with the currents and things down there? Is the fact that we have a wake zone here taken into account? Or I'm not knowledgeable, so I don't know if that's pertinent or not.
The wake zone in terms of what, the speed or?
Well, you said, oh, really, they do that down in Pompano when this gentleman spoke about what was happening in Pompano. And you commented something about the currents down there. We have a lot of stuff going on because of the wake zone here.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't. Oh, for the moored boats. Okay. Oh, that there was a setback. That's a different issue. Yeah. Yeah, I think that may have been a different issue.
But if that's taken into account here with, it's a problem.
The mooring of the boats?
No, the speed of the boats
Speeds,
and the wake
okay.
of the boats. It's
Wake.
a real problem.
Okay. We'll let Chief know about that. Go right ahead.
Hi, I just have 2 comments. I think the idea of highly encouraging seawall heights to be raised should be really, really, really almost a requirement to get those lists approved, because if you're talking about the greater good of the community, and we know about sea level rising, it's something that I think has to be a comprehensive plan for Highland Beach and for the whole Barrier Island, and it really can't be exactly property by property, and because the lack of height of the seawall for your adjacent property, if you're down drift from the other property, it's causing erosion, into the other seawalls, and I would like to see that really almost as a requirement. And the second comment that I have is I'm looking at the encroachment into the intercoastal waterway from the property line, and when I'm looking at that, it doesn't seem that it's really an encroachment into the intercoastal waterway. It seems like it's behind it. So in the places where the property line is starting further back into the, I think this is not really an encroachment.
Okay, that's a good comment. And if I may dovetail off your first comment, just for your information, the town is part of the Coastal Resiliency Partnership. Several barrier or municipalities along the Atlantic Ocean are part of this partnership. I believe it's a total of 7 municipalities, including the county. They did a climate change vulnerability assessment. They looked at 12 different threats, including storm surge, tidal flooding, all different types of threats. If you want to take a look at that climate change vulnerability assessment, there's a link on the town's webpage to it. It's a over 200-page document, but it talks about sea level rise and all that type of stuff. There's a specific section that talks about all the specific municipalities that are part of the partnership. So you'll see a specific page on Highland Beach. What are we most vulnerable to? It's worth checking it out for those of you that are interested in the topic. Yes, go right ahead.
First, let me commend you for your diligence in taking everybody through this process. I think it's helpful for everyone. Hypothetical situation, and I recognize it's impossible with this kind of thing to make everybody happy, so some people are going to want bigger setbacks, some less. I mean, it's a compromise no matter what. Here's a hypothetical, though, that hasn't, as far as I know, come up, but I don't really know how the town would even begin to address it. So let me just run through this briefly. Let's say that I have a 70-foot lot, 70-foot of frontage lot. I now have a brand new 50-foot dock, which fits with the new setbacks. I have a 40-foot lift that I've installed. It's a big 8-poster lift, and I have a 45-foot boat on my lift. My next door neighbor on both sides puts in a floating 16-foot canoe stand right on the property line. My boat will no longer make it onto my lift. What happens?
We'd bring code enforcement into the situation.
And who
Yeah.
gets into trouble?
Well, that's an
In other words,
interesting hypothetical.
that boat will not make it onto that lift without approaching from the water in back of my property. Just because that's how the lifts work. You can't parallel park on you can't parallel dock on a boat lift. You have to approach from the end or you hit the pilings. So my question, and this is a hypothetical, it may never happen but how do we address that? When people are going for permits, I mean, how does any of that,
So you're looking
how
maybe
does any of
for
that work?
you're looking for a specific setback then for the floating.
Well, I don't know the answer. Well,
Yeah.
I've already told you I love it, and I've been
Yeah.
told that we can't regulate setbacks
Yeah.
for floating things.
And obviously staff would look into that, but yeah.
Well, but Jeff is
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
definitive that we can't do anything
Yeah.
about it, even if we'd like to. Anyway, it needs to be looked at as we make rules more liberal, and people can have longer docks and therefore longer lifts and this, that, and the other. There's the potential to run into conflicts between neighbors. And I don't know how that's going to work. First come, first served doesn't seem very fair to me. These structures, if I may, these structures can be there. Somebody can have a boat and be using it. Not uncommon at all for that person to get rid of the boat. The house sells, the new owner doesn't have a boat. Those fixed lifts are there. They can be removed, but they're very expensive to remove. How is any of that addressed in any of what I think it isn't. I think we've probably gotten away with it so far. But I think it's something that probably should be looked at in some fashion, because I have no idea how we would approach that. Is Jeff still here? Maybe Jeff knows. Jeff's a very smart guy, I might add.
Jeff is the know-all of structures. Anything about a structure, we defer to Jeff. I think it's a great scenario, and we'll document it, and staff will look at it, you know. It's, again, there could be a million different scenarios, but I appreciate the, yes, I think there was a comment, the gentleman, yeah.
Oh, you guys said there were 12 lifts approved since 2020, and
Are those all single family?
Now, let me add, I think there may have been one or two lifts that have been in addition to these. When I prepared the table, I think we had some additional lifts come in. Let's see the addresses. Yeah, I believe these are all single family. I'm trying to think the 4318 South Ocean Boulevard. I'm not sure if that one's multifamily. If you want to see me after the meeting, we can go through all these and I could tell you. Yeah, I'm sorry, 4205, 4206, that's Belito. Those are definitely single family. And 3833 South Ocean, I think that may be, I'll be happy to check it after the meeting.
That's single family.
It is single family? Okay.
Yeah, and 2727 South Ocean is Villa Magna.
Okay, yeah, if it has an apartment, then it's obviously a multifamily. Bel Air, the ones on Bel Air are multifamily. Again, I'll be happy to give you the breakdown if you so wish, yeah. Any other comments? Sure, let me get you the mic. Yes, please write your comments. We really
absolutely.
would appreciate it.
You went back and, you know, I think the town makes their job a little bit harder than they have to. When you have currently, I guess you were saying there's different setbacks at different, depending, and if you go back to that slide, I think it's slide 19 you were talking about that. That's when I wrote it down. It might have been earlier.
There it is.
Okay.
These are the current setbacks, only for single-family zone districts.
Right, and then you have no setbacks for multifamily.
Correct.
Which, you know, I think it should be standard the same for both and all, make it all easy. And everybody has the same rights when it goes down to it, whether it's one piece of property or another, and everybody stays off the same side. And it might be a utopian point of view, but it certainly makes it easier for code enforcement when you're sending them out there, not to waste their time when it says it's 5 feet. Is it new? It's 5 feet, or if it's 10 feet, whatever the setback number is. So it's just done. And a new boat coming in, you know, the neighbor complains and it's too close to the property line. He just got the boat. Well, you can check registrations. You can do a lot of different things to solve your problem between neighbors. You know, because you know, that's what you want. When it's different setbacks on one side versus the other, because you had the one was 8 feet on one side and 7
Right, because
feet
it was based on the lot width. That's how the
based on
amendment
the lot
concept
width,
is, yeah.
which doesn't make, you know, really makes it difficult for you guys to do your job and the homeowner when he's buying the house to know what his rules are. So it's easier, or a vacant lot or whatever he's doing. So it's just easier to standardize as much stuff as you can through this process. You know, I'd support that in a heartbeat because it makes it easier for the town to do it. There's no arbitrary, so you don't get accused of being arbitrary and capricious when you give one person something that somebody else can't get. That's pretty much all I have, and we'll go back and
Thank you.
give you
The setbacks, that's for each lot, because their properties within the lot, they're be simple. Condos divided. Now those gotta have a 0 setback.
Right, I think
Two
when you,
condos next to each other in the same property, right? There has to remain zero setback. You cannot put the entry only at the end of each lot. Is that correct? Correct. Okay. That's what I'm saying.
Currently, so I'm on Russell Drive, so on both sides of the street, you have Boca Cove on one side, and the other side is townhome buildings, right? 3 units, 2 units, whatever. The docks continue down the whole street. In between the buildings and everything, it's continuous dock. So what you're proposing, at each property line, the dock would have to stop, and then the next one, so there is going to be like a gap from each building,
well, I think you already have docks there, right?
but it's a continuous.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, again, that's a little nuance. I think if you're putting a boat lift, right, it's a little precarious. That's why the way the code reads now, it's a little bit more liberal,
Right.
right? So long as you have that Department of Environmental Protection and Army Corps approval, you're good to go. But then when you start with the amendment concepts, yeah, and I'm sorry, you said that was Highland Beach?
No, it's Russell Drive.
Russell
so
Drive?
like Boca Cove is a community, and then on the other street is the Enclave. Both
Let
of
me
them.
put up the slide. I had one of
Yeah.
Russell. Let's take a look at that real quick. Like, this is Russell here. You're talking about these?
Right. So yeah, that whole side
Yeah.
is a continuous dock all the way, and then the other side of the street, on the bottom side of the slide, is
Oh,
the
down here?
Yep, that's the Boca Cove community, and that is one community, all the same buildings, right? And it's one continuous dock. So like where you see 1100 and 1012,
Yeah.
I think it is, you're saying the dock would have to stop there, and then
There's a current dock there, right?
yeah, it's
Yeah,
just-
because we went down that canal, and I was told by one of the planning board members that their HOA doesn't allow boat lifts. All the boats there are all moored.
right,
Right. So if they ever had the dock's falling apart, they need to put a new one.
right.
If the amendment concept gets approved, then they would have to meet the setback. Yeah.
So that community would not have a continuous dock. So like, if you, right, right.
This right here looks like it's, is that the wrong canal?
Yeah.
Let me see if I have one. Yeah, you're talking about
They
the one
would
south.
look at it, even though it's
down
separate
here.
building?
Yeah, because these lot widths are like very, very
It's not all one
narrow.
building. There's different, like it does separate in places.
I don't think I have a visual of that.
Right. So that wouldn't make
Yeah,
sense.
no.
Yeah.
I encourage you to do the fill out on the comment sheet. I'd love to get more detail. I see what you're saying, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Right. I think you have to be mindful of that. Right. We have some condos that have, I guess they're a marina where they have a dock and then they have the slips.
Right.
Right. Those are, I don't know when they got built, many years ago. But these here.
Right.
Yeah, they may not be able to do it without an HOA. Right. Yeah. As I said, this area here, the canal here, I've been down this canal many times. It's just moored boats. That's what I was saying. Yeah, they don't, that lot width, there's a really small lot width. I think these were at 22 feet or something like that in width.
Right.
Right.
That's what I'm. Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about, the nuance, yeah.
Right.
And why things have to be massaged a bit. That's why we want your comment. So I'm glad you brought up the comment. Yeah, great comment. Anything else? Okay. Well, again, I encourage all of you to fill out the form, the fillable form. It's on the town website, highlandbeach.us. And again, I have put my contact information. If you think of something tonight, by all means, yes.
Jeff was talking earlier, and he was talking about incentivizing. But a boat lift is $10,000, $14,000 for a small boat. I don't have a big boat, and I don't get the height, but it's disproportional to penalize me. I'm going to say it's a penalty if I can't put my boat lift in to get it to that 6 feet or whatever, that if my seawall's low. We're going to redo our seawall, we're going to meet the 6 foot or whatever, but if I was coming in and didn't say my seawall's relatively in good shape, I don't want to do it, just want my boat lift now, it's $10,000 to $14,000, but I can't get it and I have to go for a variance because my seawall's low is just unfair. And because that's a $100,000 improvement if I have 100 feet, at 120 a foot to do a seawall and 14,000 for a boat lift, the two are, you
Now-
shouldn't do that. I mean, it's just not fair.
Let me just add, in the code, you can't get a variance for a seawall height. Okay, it's regulated by Chapter 6, and variances are specific to Chapter 30. You can't get a variance for seawall height. It is what it is, base flood elevation. So just want to make that clear to you.
Sure. But I wouldn't be getting a variance for that. I'd have to get a variance for a boat lift, which technically, and based on a non-self-imposed hardship, I don't know how anybody can ever meet the criteria. I mean, they shouldn't, because I don't have to buy that boat. I can have any boat. I mean, you can make that.
It is hard to meet the criteria.
Yeah, the criteria almost should never be met, but
That boat lives on our property. That's what I'm trying to do.
Any other comments? Thank you. No other comments? Thank you so much for coming. We do really appreciate it.